Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio Sinoland in Shenzhen, just south of the Tropic of Cancer. Today's a really fun article and podcast with a lot of historical context that reflects on this amazing country today. It is entitled, It's the Cultural Revolution All Over Again. Well, kinda, sorta. Pictured above, a revolutionary poster included in book number 3 of the China Trilogy. China is Communist Dammit. Shown are Shanghai-educated youth going to Xinjiang with Mao Zedong's little red book in hand to teach the peasants what they knew, but more importantly, to come back home, change themselves forever. Here we go. In the China Trilogy, I wrote extensively about China's 1966 to 1976 Cultural Revolution. I regret what I said in book number 1, 44 Days, as I still needed thousands of hours of reading, research, and writing to admit my incorrect interpretation of this world-changing event, not to mention the Great Leap Forward, 1958 to 1962, and the Mao era in general, 1949 to 1978. Book number 2, China Rising, and number 3, China is Communist Dammit, finally got the true story right. When I was a volunteer in the Peace Corps, 1980 to 1982, living and working in the foothills of the Atlas Mountains in rural Tunisia, it changed me forever in my outlook on life for the better. Making just enough for my needs, living a humble existence, and working with tradition-bound farmers was an eye-opening, soul-searching experience. I don't think my trajectory is much different from many people who make the same plunge and really push themselves outside their socioeconomic comfort zone. The same can be said for the 17 million educated urban youth who were sent to the countryside 1962 to 1979, 14 million of those during the 10-year Cultural Revolution. Its official name was Up the Mountains and Down to the Countryside Movement. They are commonly called Sent Down Youth. Untold numbers of sent down youth returned home and continued to live a life of service to the masses. Many are famous, including President Xi Jinping, Premier Li Keqiang, and China's previous president Hu Jintao, and others. After toiling for 7 years in isolated rural poverty, covered with fleas and lice, ex-JP famously said, to paraphrase, "I left the city a skinny boy and came back a strong man," I'll say. Westerners and many Chinese have been brainwashed that the Cultural Revolution was an unmitigated disaster that almost destroyed the country. That's simply not true. It was harsh, sometimes violent, and unfair for the 10% of the urban citizens who were bourgeois elites. But for the 90% of the people who were workers, peasants, soldiers, and students, this decade of transformation was largely very positive and beneficial. The problem in the West, it is those 10% elites who write their what's known as scar literature, get the million-dollar book deals, then are feted and awarded in the West's racist, anti-communist, anti-China, big lie propaganda machine, the BLPM. Chinese who grew up in the 90% class write mostly in obscurity. I read the books and interviewed 2 of them on China Rising Radio Sinoland, Dongping Han and Mobo Gao. They offer a diametrically opposed interpretation of the Great Leap Forward and Cultural Revolution compared to the China-hating Western propaganda foghorn blasting across the planet. Monsieur Han and Gao are not alone. There are many websites in China dedicated to the Cultural Revolution sent down youth. Testimonies, blogs, photos, diaries, poems, songs, rosters, and much more are shared for all the world to appreciate. To wit, and there are 3 websites listed, As well, there are 84 museums and monuments across China honoring the Cultural Revolution's urban volunteers. Interestingly, millions of urban youth got married while in the hinterlands to poor peasants and among themselves. Revolution in love, like strong coffee and sweet cream. So, with sent down youth filling many important roles in China's government, military, business, and education, is it any wonder that Baba Beijing has announced a Cultural Revolution redux in the next 3 years, sending 10 million volunteer urban youth to the countryside? With Donald Trump and Western Empire trying to put the kibosh on the Chinese people's relentless socialist advances, the nation's economy is taking some hits and jobs are getting harder to find for the millions of graduates coming out of university each year. So the benefit of the new 21st century Cultural Revolution Send Down Youth campaign will serve two purposes. First, it will teach these mostly spoiled bourgeois youngsters that if it wasn't for Mao Zedong and the Communist Party of China, the CPC, they would never have been able to be spoiled in bourgeois in the first place in a free and liberated China. No Mao Zedong, no CPC, and China today would be a continent-sized Libya or Indonesia, balkanized into 10 internecine NATO puppet states and raped by Western Empire. Secondly, like Xi Jinping, Li Keqiang, and all the 20th century sent down youth, they can come back with many more ideas to find jobs, work, and prosper, with Mao's famous, very anti-capitalist, communist socialist mantra ringing in their heads, serve the people. Thus, I hope these 10 million Chinese citizens return home as transformed as I was for the better when I volunteered overseas 1980 to 1982. New eyes and broader horizons for a new lease on life. This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio Sinoland, signing out from Shenzhen. Bye-bye.